from NWA Power, and you are listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
All right, everybody, it's the Working Fans Podcast with the man they call Dave. And today we got a professional wrestler, former Ring of Honor star, current NWA star, and two-time guest, Mr. Sal Rinauro. Sal, thank you for coming back and being our first two-time guest, actually.
Before we even hit that, how often do you get, he's a man called Dave, there's a man.
You know what's funny? I'm going to tell you right now. First off, I love that callback. Secondly, we were joking around because my producer, he doesn't like to give our last names out and have a very generic name. And he was like, what could you do? And I just hit it. I was like, the man they call Dave. I was thinking Vader, but AJ, who was also on the show, our other co-host, he did the same thing you did. He said, man, call Dave.
I remember, so, when 96 was here, I remember clear as day, the Raw Bowl is the episode of Raw where Vader, they showed those vignettes of Vader jumping on the trampoline.
Yes.
And Vince was like, the man they call Vader. And I was like, what else should they call him? That's his name. 13-year-old me rationalizing this man's crazy commentary.
I was thinking the same thing. I remember because they would always change the name, but they didn't quite change his name, and I'm like, they can't call him Big Van, apparently, you know.
Apparently, he left his Big Van down by the river, but that's another story for another day. Anyway, back to me being the first two-time guest. I have a history of repeating things before anybody else does. I did a whole thing in NWA Wildside in 01 and 02 where I was the two-time back-to-back Rookie of the Year, which is as absolutely absurd as it sounds. So I'm glad I can carry on the tradition into another generation of wrestling fans.
It does happen now. I think I just saw something where Brian Pillman Jr. just got that too. I forget how.
Actually, I had to fight hard. So keep in mind, my first year in Wildside, I was probably already 3 years in the business. And they put me on the Rookie of the Year poll. And in my brain, I was just like, well, it's my first year at Wildside. That makes sense. And somehow I won. And as soon as I won, I went to the guys in charge. So I went to Bill and Rick, and I was like, hey, I need to win this again next year. And Bill was like, that's ridiculous. You can't be a two-time Rookie of the Year. I was like, well, that's the whole point. He completely buried me for it. Just like, dude, no way, not gonna happen. Don't ever think this again. And so every once in a while I would bring it up, because like, once I won the Rookie of the Year, you know, I was a heel. So like, I went and got a trophy made for me in my image. I got tights with Roy on the butt, which Scott Hudson loved. So, fast forward to about November of the following year, and I got a phone call from Bill, and he was like, I've got a great idea. What if you rig the Rookie of the Year and you win it again? I'm like, Jesus, I don't know what you think these ideas from.
Oh, man. How cool was it to work with Scott Hudson? I mean, you were obviously a WCW and a wrestling fan growing up. That must have been kind of cool.
Yeah, so, the whole era of Wildside was just so surreal to me. Because, like, like I said, when I got there, I was about 3 years in the business, but I'm talking like mom and pop, you know, like, no interactions with anybody that's ever been anywhere, ever. And then all of a sudden, I kind of just was thrust into Wildside, who had a WCW developmental. So, like, I went from guy, you know, like, the biggest person I'd ever been on a show with being 6'4", but he was like 146 pounds, to walking in the locker room and getting high with Bob Sapp, but Bob Sapp sitting down and I'm on my tiptoes. So, like, it was just this whole new world, but, like, so Scott Hudson, like, to this day, still, for whatever reason, like, I'll run into him from time to time in Georgia, because he'll just show up, and he has always been a big Sal Rinauro supporter, which still blows me away to this day. Like, I was, like, super Marky Mark, like, when I saw him in the locker room, just like, dude, this is awesome. And then, like, when I found out he was doing commentary for my match, I was like, oh my God, Scott Hudson. Because it was Scott Hudson and Steve Prazak who I'd seen in ECW. So I was just like, oh show that I was like super fanboy of pro wrestling. Now I'm old and I just don't care. So every time I see him, I start grilling him about, anything I can think of from the 2000 eras of Nitro and WCW. And then obviously we've talked at length about the Booker T Buck Bagwell match in Tacoma. And all that stuff. But like Scott Hudson's one of my favorite people. And one time he had invited me and one of my friends. He goes, hey, I've got a big house by the lake. You guys should come over and watch the pay-per-view and grill steaks and all that. And I was like, yeah, sure, Scott. And hindsight in 2020, he was being for real. And I'm just a jerk that was like, yeah, right, Scott Hudson's not invited me to his house. And I totally blew him off.
Oh, man.
Scott's the best. His recall is still really sharp, too, which is awesome. Because, like, there's other guys who, like, for example, one night, long story short, I volunteered to take Paul Orndorff home from a show because Paul Orndorff needed a ride home, and like, yeah, this is gonna be the coolest car trip ever. So I got Mr. Wonderful in the car, and I'm just grilling him question after question. And some of the stuff he was spot on, but they're like, I was like, hey man, what was it like working the Renegade? And he was like, dude, I don't know who you're talking about. I was like, oh, come on, the Renegade. I want you to marry him. But he was like, dude, I don't even remember him. I was like, okay. Scott remembers it basically anything that I've thrown at him. Scott kind of has a recall, so it's awesome.
You had mentioned Bob Sapp. Did you work with Bob at all?
No. So before a show, once just did bump dummies.
Yeah.
And I'm 17 at the time and 32 pounds. So of course, hey, I'm one of the three guys in there. So Bob Sapp threw me around, but he didn't break a sweat. Or it was 110 degrees in the Wildside building, which automatically makes it feels like 750 degrees. And Bob Sapp's picking me up and throwing me around, and like on the fly. He was just swatting me away. Just unreal strength. Some guys you gotta post for and get up for. Bob Sapp's not that guy.
I was just wondering if it's like intimidating. With a guy that green, but also that size and strength, I just wonder, if it's a little.
Oh, well, keep in mind, like I said, when I walk into the locker room at Wildside, I'm already kind of intimidated just because, this was the hotbed of Georgia indie wrestling. And I walk in, and he's literally the first guy I see, and I'm standing as vertical as I've ever stood in my life, and this guy is sitting down, and he's looking me in the eye.
Yeah.
He stands up, and he just doesn't stop. And I'm like, alright. So yeah, super intimidating, but he was also a very cool guy. He was very, once we got done, he was very appreciative of me going in there and bumping for him, like I had a choice.
Right.
I'm pretty sure if he wanted to bump me, he was going to bump me. But he was a super cool dude. I really liked Bob Sapp.
The last time you were on was, I think the first week of March. 2 weeks later, they started shutting everything down for COVID. You were injured. How has the recovery been, and what's been going on?
Well, I told a lot of people, when I broke my arm, I kind of secretly hoped that the wrestling world would kind of wait for me. I didn't mean the whole world.
Right.
That's my fault. That's on me. World, I apologize. I put my CDs out into the universe all the time. This is the first time it's worked.
Yeah. Very good, too.
Who knew? But yeah, the arm, I'm back full boogie as far as in the gym. Gotten to roll around in a ring a couple times, and everything felt good. Nothing, obviously, in front of a live crowd or anything yet. But I'm ready. I know that. I'm physically ready to go. I'm just hoping the world can catch up with us, because I know, I get constantly, especially, it's awesome. I've been a part of really great fan bases in my life, but nothing like the NWA fan base. I'll get 5 to 10 messages a week from different people. Hey, when's NWA coming back? Really miss you guys. When's NWA coming back? If I had an answer, I swear I'd let you know. I can't wait. I know that.
One of the questions I was going to ask you was if you knew. I had a feeling you weren't going to know, so that's okay.
No, unfortunately, I'm on standby like everybody else. You know, the problem with it in this one, I mean, just across the board, is everything is so unknown that, you know, like, I think it'd be foolish. It would almost, it'd be foolish to announce a date, and then we get to that date, and something happens in between, and sanctions stop the show from happening. I know, I mean, top to bottom, there's not, I know Billy wants to go be back running. I know Nick Aldis wants to be back running. You know, and trickle down the card. Everybody wants to be back running, but I get the genuine feeling that they don't want to do half a crowd. They don't want to do a quarter crowd. Like, that audience at the GPB studio is so essential to the presentation of the show that if you take away part of that crowd, you're almost taking away the heart of the show. So as frustrating as it is for a guy like me who's, I haven't got to wrestle since January. So, like, there's all these guys on the indies that are been ready to wrestle since April. And 3 months of that, like, I'm super ready to go. But I respect the decision that if we're going to do it the right way. We're not going to endanger anybody. So, like, I think that's awesome. But like I said, I can't wait. If they come out tomorrow and announce, the first show Sunday, I'll be the first guy there.
I'm assuming you've been watching a lot of wrestling still? Like, what's out there?
Constantly.
What did you think of Eddie Kingston being in AEW? How did that feel?
So, I've always liked Eddie. I've known Eddie for a long time. Eddie was a part of one of my favorite, when we were doing the HDNet show for ROH. I kind of pitched an idea that I was nervous about, but it was something where I was thrown in the ring. It was all gaga. Eddie Kingston and I had 4 minutes, and I was like, can we just make this match a pin? And, Pierce was kind of like, what do you mean? Adam Pierce, who was booking at the time. And I go, what if I eat that breakfast before the bell even starts? So as soon as the ref calls for the bell, Eddie Kingston just covers me and pins me, and we have a 3-second match. I go, we'll fill up the 4 minutes of TV, but the match itself will be 3 seconds. And he was like, I love it. It's different.
Right.
So we did, like, I kind of came out, and I had my back to Eddie, and I won't sell to Eddie, and finally I bump into him, and I give him the old, I feel him behind me, and I pray to sweet baby Jesus, and I feel him behind me again, and it's all gaga. I go to shake his hand, he's spinning back fits me, he, kind of gives the ref a look, he rings the bell, 1, 2, 3, he rings the bell. So, I mean, this is 09, so I've known Eddie for a long time. I've always dug Eddie. When we did the first set of NWA tapings, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see Eddie versus Nick Aldis. Eddie's the modern day Dusty, and Eddie was always like, oh, shut up, I'm not Dusty Rhodes. I was like, oh man, you're this generation's Dusty, dude. Like, I mean that in every respectful way possible. Like, dude, you're Dusty, it's cool. So when I had heard, like, yeah, Eddie's gonna be on AEW, 98% of me was like, yes, that's awesome, he deserves it, like, I can't wait to see this. But then there was that 2% of me that was like, man, Eddie's gonna get signed, I'm not gonna get to hang out with Eddie anymore, this is the worst. The proof is in the pudding. I mean, saying he hit a home run is an understatement. I mean, it was such a thing of beauty. He says little things that pop me, that, like, he's so good on the microphone, and he's so genuine, but, like, it's not necessarily the heart of what he says, but it's little things like when he told Arn, I put on my sweet mom, my mom's beautiful eyes. If you say one more word to me, I'll pop out your eye. I was like, man, just the fact that he was able to incorporate just his mom's beautiful eyes, like, it's stuff like that really gets you like, man, that's brilliant. So, I'm super happy for Eddie. I'm super bummed for me.
Yeah, I do want to say I actually was explaining Eddie Kingston to someone the other day as a fan, and I I said his interviews remind me of a modern day Dusty and Funk kind of. And
yeah. And then it's Kyle Davis, who's the backstage interviewer at NWA. He was at ROH with us at the same time. Almost from day one, we were like, dude, he's the modern day Dusty. Like, just when he speaks, people listen, and it's so captivating and compelling, and it's not crazy. It's not, I'm going to sit out on a shirt. It's just, you feel everything he says, and it's very much like Dusty Rhodes. Like, you just feel what he says, and he relates to the people, and you want to see him win, and you want to see him in battle. And I mean, suffice to say, I think Eddie Kingston's kind of good at pro wrestling.
Yeah. Now, you said Kyle. We had Kyle on the show once, and I want to ask you, how did it come about, for people who haven't seen this, it's called Kyle and Sal Lack Direction. And it's a little bit you guys, and it looks like you're kind of annoying Kyle, but it's great. Like, how did this come about?
Right before they announced Carneyland, I got a phone call. They're like, hey, we're doing a show called Carneyland. And I was like, okay, well, what's the premise? Oh, we don't know yet. We're going to figure it out. So I just started putting together a bunch of different ideas in my brain. Like, well, what can I do that would separate me from the pack? Well, at the same time, I was talking to Kyle, because he's moved to Georgia. So I stay in touch with Kyle anyways, just about life. And so we were running ideas by each other. And my grand vision was, the pitch I came up with was, Kyle was my babysitter while I was on a hunt for the physical incarnation of Carneyland. So every week it would be a 2-minute segment of wacky shenanigans. With that premise, I can get into anything. As long as the end of the day is I'm hunting for Carneyland, it can take me to space, it can take me underwater, it can take me the past, it can take me wherever. And so I threw that pitch and they said, well, the problem is you're a character within Carneyland, so you're kind of looking for, you can't be looking for a place where we're fit. I was like, oh no. And they go, but we like the idea of you and Kyle as a buddy. In my brain, we were like Bill and Ted, but I was told Harold and Kumar. I was like, whatever, as long as we get to do this. And they, so we started bouncing ideas off each other, and we came up with, well, what if you are hunting for a special present for May Valentine to help her through, get through the pandemic? And I was like, that's perfect. So, I got with Kyle, and I was like, hey man, this is the premise. I'm hunting for something for me. You're my sidekick. Let's figure it out. And he was like, okay. And so we've shot, I think, 10 or 11 episodes so far. Everything kind of got put on pause because we read and filmed everything. It was me, Kyle, a phone, and insane ideas from my brain. And action. So we shot a lot of it just on our own, but then we sent it in to be edited. And once NWA shut down, all the stuff that we sent in kind of shut down with it. So there's still more in the can. For all those that haven't seen it, Sal and Kyle Lack Direction on YouTube, my fingers are crossed that we can get back to filming it, because I think it really screams through the screen how much fun we were having. It's two buddies, it's over the top Sal Rinauro hunting for I'm looking for a piece of jewelry that May Valentine's mother gave her when she was a child that she lost. I don't know what that piece of jewelry is. So we're kind of just filling in the blanks as we go. But we had such a good time, and my thing, like I said, this pitch was given to me on Friday. I went to Atlanta on Saturday to meet the Kyle so we can shoot. So what you see is kind of last minute improvisation. Like the binoculars I had to borrow from my ex-mother-in-law at cowboy hat I have was the closest thing I could find to a safari hat. The locations we have, we just showed up and started filming. So, I had a blast shooting it, and once we get the green light, I've got some real zany ideas that are either going to hit and everybody's going to love them, or they're so over the top that people are just going to forget them, and I'll laugh at them by myself.
You can tell you and Kyle definitely have a good relationship, and
and that's one of those things that goes back to those ROH days too, where he was trained. I think he was part of the Aries class. And for whatever reason, I always I tried to look out for the young guys that were just breaking in. And Kyle was one of those guys, and he kind of shifted gears and went into the commentary and the backstage interview role. But Kyle and I have always, we've just always kind of clicked and had a chemistry about us. And like I said, what you see is what you get on those videos. It's not a script, nothing scripted. It's us going down the road and him seeing a playground and going, hey, what if we do this? I'm like, oh, yeah, and what if we do this? It's like, yeah, and we're just kind of building off each other's ideas. But I have a blast doing it, and I'm really, fingers crossed we can get back to it. We shot a series of vignettes too when we were trying to figure out the mayor of Ponyland.
Right.
In reality, I think Kyle ended up posting the video. The first cut we did, I hated. It just, nothing clicked. Keep in mind, this was the same weekend that there was riots in downtown Atlanta. And I'm in a park in downtown Atlanta with huge ticket signs trying to get people toilet paper. Because in my brain, the only way somebody would vote for me for mayor is if I give them a roll of toilet paper. So we're trying to, again, we're guerrilla shooting this. We're just, anybody that would walk by, like, hey, vote Sal for mayor. And they're like, hey, you're on fire because there's a riot. And I'm like, oh, I need to put myself out. Thanks, Sal. So, going home that day, I felt defeated because I was just like, man, we just spent 8 hours shooting footage that was just garbage. It's never going to work. And Kyle sent me a message the next day. He goes, I think I got something. Give me a minute. And he sent me the video. He edited it together, and I was like, oh my God, this is enjoyable. I don't know how you did this.
There's a part in that lack direction, I think producer Joe wanted me to ask you. If you want to know if you listen to hip-hop music, because there's a joke in there at the end, I think, about NWA, you're looking to put in.
Oh, that's one of our one of the gags for the show, one of our on-running gags is, I think Ice Cube's the owner of the NWA. Because I heard, an 80s, 90s musician bought the NWA. Why wouldn't it be Ice Cube? It's literally the only logical conclusion. I mean, I'm a huge hip-hop fan anyways, so that kind of just works into my advantage, but this was actually Kyle's idea that I ran with. I'm a big hip-hop fan, but yeah, that's something I've tried to intertwine into a lot of the stuff we did going forward that hasn't made air yet. That I'm trying to get into the NWA to not only be a successful wrestler, but so Ice Cube will listen to my demo and sign me and, help my budding rap career.
That's awesome. Now, we made a little joke about the man called Sting earlier. I got to ask you then, transition, pro wrestling music. What are some of your favorite pro wrestling theme songs? I know you probably got some.
So I'm very much all over the board. Like I said, I'm a huge hip-hop fan. Like, that's what I listen to, but I'm also everywhere. I'm all over the board when it comes to my musical taste, so you'll have to bear with me on some of these. A lot of them are probably, from the golden era, like, Jack Soul Bro. Sure. I have an Akeem shirt. Even as a kid, like, I didn't connect that Akeem was a shot at Dusty. I just saw Akeem dancing to Jack Soul Bro, and it brought me so much joy. Dude, like, it literally wasn't until 02 that I realized that the 747 was named the Air Africa when he became Akeem. Right. And so when I did hit me, I was like, that's the smartest dick ever. yo, bro, All-American Boys for Fabulous Rousseaus.
Oh, man.
Get out of here. I remember when the Full Metal album came out in '96. I could not wear the epitome of cool was going down the street in my buddy's car, playing Razor Ramon's theme. You don't know cool until you got the windows down, cruising down the street. So definitely, the Razor Ramon theme. A real American.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Timeless classic. I know the lyrics of the Honky Tonk Band and the Big Boss Band, but even there's just so many. I'm trying to think. My son and I were just a couple days ago rocking out to D'Lo Brown's theme.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, because I've completely ruined a whole generation. My son, my youngest son, my oldest son was born while I was still full-time, getting after it on the road all the time. So I think he kind of has a bitterness towards wrestling. My youngest son is not that way. He is the epitome of a mini-me. So when it comes to pro wrestling, he's almost as sharp as I am already, which is scary. Because I'm like, hey man, maybe do some algebra. I'm very proud that you can name the main event of every WrestleMania, considering you're 9 years old and you weren't alive for most of them. I need you to study history, like real history, like the American history, for like 20 minutes. And then we'll get back into the split of Strike Force at WrestleMania, alright, buddy? Like, bear with me. But, just a couple days ago, we were in that D'Lo Brown song. I forget what happened, but we were like, yeah, it's time. Sky high for everybody. There's so many.
What up?
The Mark Henry theme, not Mark Henry, I'm sorry, the Rikishi theme, the bad man, very underrated theme song. He's a bad man doing bad things. Like, I don't know how that heel turn didn't work. He told us all what was happening.
He did it for the people.
He did it for the people.
I wanted to ask you, though, you had a story, I want to say, the last time you hear about your son, where there was somebody didn't like, and even though like they were trying to portray him as a good guy, you're like, nope, he's not a good guy. I can't remember what it was, but there was somebody.
Well, I know there's the New Day, which is ironic because Xavier Woods is one of my guys. Like, I didn't train him from, I didn't begin training him, but right when he started, I kind of took him under my wing. And so, my kids literally call him Uncle Austin, but it took Jacob months. After that New Day turn, Jacob was still like, no, I don't trust this dude. And I'm like, dude, that's Uncle Austin. Like, he's a part of our family. Like, he gets you tickets to shows. Yeah, Dad, he's also a bad guy. Like, no, not anymore. And it wasn't until it was a random role where he did an 8-man and he teamed with Cesaro. And all was forgiven. You know what? They're not that bad after all. So where have you been? Another one was Rusev. Almost to this day, he doesn't trust Rusev. He just, I'm a huge Rusev guy. Where not just his in-ring work, which I've always been a fan of, but the person is hilarious. Every time I see something with him, he pops me. And so, I was a Rusev guy before the babyface turn, but once he turned babyface and was doing Rusev Day, my son was like, no way, dude. Not on my watch. Rusev Day, burn the calendar. How about that? So, he's still he's very stands by his convictions on feelings of guys until, he lets them heal some wounds, but not all wounds.
Since you brought up Rusev, you're a fan of him, I just want to ask you, assuming everything gets back to normal down here on the line, the NWA is back, we're running shows, who are some guys maybe you'd like to see in the NWA?
All of them. release had hit, I texted Bill Barons. I was like, Bill, am I going to get replaced with Heath Slater? I mean, it's an upgrade, but like, I don't want that to happen. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that, I would have said a week ago that obviously aren't there now, just because other contracts, but like, I would have loved for a guy like a Kurt Hawkins to come in, just because I think he's got a great mind. Yeah. He's almost a figure guy too, so we can talk figures, and I can pick his brain. Luke Gallows is a good buddy of mine that, I talk to once a week, so I would have loved to see him and Carl come in, especially in the tag division in NWA. I think they would have fit right in. Especially if we still had Eddie Kingston and Homicide. Something with the Good Brothers, Homicide and Eddie Kingston, I think would have been very cool. Obviously, I mean, if Rusev versus Aldis for the NWA title, I think would be awesome. I think that would be spectacular. I've always thought Curtis Axel is very underrated, his in-ring stuff. He's just the right outlet. I would really be interested in seeing a guy like him come in. I'm trying to think who's still out there that has already been picked up. Smarter company.
They got picked up, but the FTR would have been good, obviously, I think. They would have been
So, when it was official, they were leaving right when Crockett Cup was happening. And Dash is another, so like I knew Dash and Dawson before both of them were, when they were still Stephen Walters and Casey McKnight, and they were two North Carolina, indie guys. So I've known them forever too. So like, when Crockett Cup was on the calendar and FTR was available, I was so excited because I was like, this is the perfect fit. I mean, I couldn't imagine a better scenario. Plus, selfishly, I would love to get in there and mix it up with them again. Because it's been years. I remember like the first, when Stephen Walter, when, I guess his name's Cash Wheeler now, when he first started coming around, I mean, he was probably, he wasn't late teens, he was early 20s. He was a high flyer. I mean, I remember talking him into doing a 450 through an open ladder. So just watching how his whole style has evolved and changed has been awesome. And I haven't got to mix it up with him since he's changed his style. So that would be, both of them. I would love to get the opportunity to get in there with either one of them.
Yeah, one of them, correct me, I'm not sure which one it was, actually was helping Edge with his comeback. They had him on...
Yeah, it was Dash.
Was Dash, okay, yeah.
Yeah. He told me the story where Edge started coming to the gym he worked at. And instead of Dash, like, hey, I'm a wrestler, come, you watch my stuff, blah, 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 blah. He didn't say anything to him about it for months until somebody else smartened Edge up. And then Edge's the one who was like, hey, I heard you wrestle. If you want to show me some footage sometime, I'd be happy to help. So, but I think that kind of, the way it was handled, I think Edge gained a better respect for him that way. Like I said, I would love to get in there with them. They're awesome, and I've got a guy down here that I work with that I would love. That would be my dream tag match on the Indies, is me and my buddy Marv versus FTR. I would love to see them in NWA. I mean, what a perfect scenario for them, right?
Yeah, right. You're very good at laughing at yourself. I appreciate that. That's got to be helpful in the wrestling business.
100%.
Yeah. It's actually very helpful in life too, I would say too. I've used it myself, so.
For everybody out there looking for life advice, just laugh at yourself. It makes it all easier. You're welcome.
Assuming we do get back to normal, you're back in a ring. Let's say you're back in a ring, and God, hopefully in 3 months, a year from now, what would you like to be doing? What's the ideal scenario? What's a goal? What would be something you'd like to see for yourself?
Well, I'm real big on being part of an underground sensation. So, if NWA is back up and running, I would love to still be a part of that NWA family. Like I said, those fans are so passionate. I think it's really cool to see how far, not like the NWA is this new, young thing. I mean, years old. But like, its evolution and its revolution of the NWA has been something that's been so cool to be a part of. And I'd really like to, find myself a really good niche in the NWA. I mean, like, I'm not sure what's going on with 60 Guys right now in that TV title, but I know that's always been, even when Wildside, when NWA Wildside was up and something, they had a TV title. And I kind of had that on the bucket list. Like, I want to be the television champion. Because I just remember as a kid, you're the best wrestler on television if you have the TV title. Like, that's such a cool thing to be able to say. And so I would love to be in the TV title mix. In a year from now, I mean, that would be awesome for me. Obviously, getting in there and mixing it up with Nick Aldis for the NWA World title would be, surreal. I honestly think if given the right amount of time and the right story, I could make a believable case as to why I could be in that mix and get that shot. I mean, everybody knows the comedy side of me and the funny side of me, but there's also this passionate wrestling thing inside of me that's thought that, been buying the magazine since 1984, and like, the NWA title means a lot to a lot of people, but it means so much to me, just the heritage of what it represents, just the heritage of pro wrestling. Like I've said a million times, I'm a self-professed wrestling nerd, so like, to be in the hunt for that would be surreal. That would be awesome. So that would definitely be something on my bucket list.
100%. I hope we see the NWA back soon. I'm a huge fan of it as well. I do think you're right to a certain point. Even though it's like the oldest organization out there, it felt very new again in the time period that we're living in. So it was super cool.
Yeah, no, it's got this whole new breath of life. And I know they say that, wrestling's cyclical and sometimes what's old is new, but like, it almost feels it's such a group effort to make this thing work. And this is not to disparage any other wrestling company, because I've seen it, from WWE on down, how much effort and work and pride goes into all these different shows. But to be there from day one of the Power era, I really take a great amount of pride in that. Like I said before, like, I was the very first match in the history of Power, and I'm the only one left standing. The guy I came with, that was his one time there. The Dawson brothers aren't there anymore, so like, I'm glad to remain a piece of history, and I kind of want to see how long I can ride that out.
One other thing I have to say, you were talking about this earlier, and how like real, like, you and Kyle's relationship is, and Tim Storm comes across very real. Eddie Kingston, when he was on the show, very real, and I think Nick said it too. It's like one thing the NWA really brings to the table to me is that authenticity. It just feels so genuine when you're watching the show.
I'm so glad that comes across the screen, because it's real. It's not like we're in the back goofing off. Like, those guys that are in that locker room, say girls, I say guys as it covers both sexes, so don't yell at me for I love all people. But everybody in that locker room genuinely doesn't want to be there. They want to make this product the best they can. They want the fans to enjoy themselves. They want this NWA project to work. And I'm super glad that comes across on the television.
Yeah, one thing I was saying about, like, especially with all this too, I think you would agree with this, like, when you're watching an NWA show, and I think this is I don't know if it's by design, but it just works out this way, I think it's great, is you're watching solid wrestling, they're giving you a little bit of everything, but when all this is in that main event, especially if it's a pay-per-view, it feels like a big fight feel. It feels like a boxing title match or a UFC title, like, oh, okay, this is game time now.
Absolutely. I think it's column A and column B. I definitely think it's done by design, but I also think it's it's a natural occurrence. Like, I don't think anybody on day one wrote down on a piece of paper, big like deal. You can't manufacture that.
No.
You know, you can push Lex Luger as much as you want. At the end of the day, Yokozuna just wasn't getting it done at SummerSlam.
And I think we got to give Aldis credit for that too. It's definitely the man right there who.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, so like I'm a big fan of Office. I know I'm just Ray Reed. I like The Office, but Pam and Angela are doing a podcast, a weekly podcast where they review an episode of The Office, and they always talk about what great writing they had to work with. But you can only put so much on paper. You know, like you've got to have the person that can perform it, that makes that writing stand out and work. And Aldis has done more than that. I mean, you know, like I said, you can write whatever you want about Nick Aldis on paper, but he's the one that goes out there and does it. And he does it so well that it's almost scary.
We're heading about 45 minutes now. I'm going to let you get off. Is there anything you want to promote before you go? Anything you want to let people know they can find you? Hit them with it.
Sure, yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Sal Rinauro. I'll shoot out a tweet maybe once every other day when I get bored. I have these weird insights that are like, I should be a pro wrestler and tweet today. Sometimes it's useful. Sometimes it's things like, you know, I wonder how many hot dogs are being eaten because there's no fans at the baseballs. Yeah. I mean, you never know what you're going to get with me. You can follow me, on Facebook, Sal Rinauro, on Instagram at Sal_Rinauro, and I jumped on board, ProWrestlingTees.com/Sal Rinauro. I've got the new I Have the Power t-shirt, because I'm a big He-Man guy, I'm a big Fissure guy, so you can check that out. It's a pretty... I actually just texted Xavier Woods today because I picked up the New Day He-Man figure at Walmart. And I texted him today, I was like, hey man, I just picked up your He-Man figure. That's a real sentence.
You know what? I don't think we can end this on a better note.
There you go.
Sal, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Sal. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Have a good one.
You too. Have a great night, man. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.